Hello everyone and welcome. Now hopefully this one is going to be a quick video. Just want to talk about two passages here which some people, especially that I like to call the work salvationists, or kind of think of themselves as fruit inspectors, or simply just people who kind of use these passages as a so-called proof to show that certain people, if they do not bear fruit, they're going to get cut off or cut away. And it is basically relates to their behavior, their outside appearance, spiritual changes that has taken place or the lack of it, because they haven't matured enough yet, or they're still struggling, or they, figuratively speaking, laying down on the ground, so being unproductive. And certain people are judging fellow believers according to these passages. But is that actually what this passage is saying? Let's have a read. So the first one is from the book of John, chapter 15, is when Jesus talks about the wine grape. It starts, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the husbandman. Every branch in me that beareth not fruit, he taketh away. And every branch that beareth fruit, he purgeth, that it may bring forth more fruit. Now ye are clean through the word which I have spoken unto you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except if it abide in the vine, no more can ye, except ye abide in me. I am the vine, and ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. For without me you can do nothing." Verse 7 says, "If ye abide in me, and my words abide in you, ye shall ask what you will, and it shall be done unto you." Now, first of all, who does Jesus talks about here? Because first of all, we need to look everything in context, and context is always the principal thing. So, every branch in me. So it's talking about believers, because only a believer can abide in him through faith. So Jesus is identifying two different kinds of branches. This first branch, he says, that beareth not fruit, he says, he taketh away. Now this Greek word is called airo, which could be used as take it away, but its primary use is to raise, to lift up, to be hoisted, or to elevate. Because the branches, the vine branch, the example which Jesus has used, those branches that are on the ground or laying down on the ground, exposed to the blazing sun, or covered in dirt or dust, or laying in a puddle of water. Now, these branches that are laying on the ground, for them to be able to start producing fruit, it needs to be lifted up. It needs to be elevated, hoisted up. And the other kind of branch, it needs to be pruned or purged, which means katairo, the Greek word, which means to cleanse, to purify, to prune, or to eliminate that is fruitless. So those who are already bearing fruit, you just need to be pruned every now and then so it can continue to produce even more fruit. Jesus doesn't say he cuts away part of his own body, because he is the vine, we are the branches, so we are making up his body. But it is him who's bearing us. So without him, he said, we cannot do nothing. We cannot bear fruit by ourselves, by our own efforts. We need to be abiding in him. How do we do that? By faith. So once we are part of Jesus' body, he's not going to cut away parts of his own body, but he takes care of it. He prunes it, cleanses it, purifies it, lifts it up, hoists it up, so it can bear fruit. And so this fruit would remain. Also he says, "Now ye are clean through the word which I have spoken unto you. And if ye abide in me, and my words abide in you, ye shall ask what you will, and it shall be done unto you." So Jesus is the word, and it is him who's abiding in us. So instead of threatening or scaring people by telling them that they're going to get cut away if they don't bear any fruit, or they're too late because they haven't matured enough yet, or they're still struggling, or they're, figuratively speaking, laying down on the ground, so being unproductive. We tend to look at these kind of people who are worthy to be cut away and thrown to the fire. That's not what Jesus was saying. He said exactly these branches need even more attention, more care, so they could start producing fruit. The other passage is found in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7, verses 15 through 20. It reads, "Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns, or figs of thistles? Even so every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bring forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore, by their fruits ye shall know them." So again, this passage people using to prove that if you're not producing good fruit, that's it. You're dead. You're going to get cut away and thrown into the fire. And again, context about whom this passage talks about. Beware of false prophets, which come unto you in sheep's clothing, and you shall know them by their fruit. So Jesus is talking about here about the false prophets, not believers. These are the false prophets who are with counterfeit messages, counterfeit gospels, and other Jesuses. They're deceiving people, they're misleading people, and they're trying to bring them into a bondage. So again, if Jesus is the good tree, this good tree can only bear forth good fruit. So if we are in Christ, we are in this tree, so we can only bring forth good fruit, because it is impossible to bring forth bad fruit, because he's talking about the false prophets here. And their fruit is always the same: deception, lies, hypocrisy, and condemnation, and generating fear. This is the kind of fruit that they're producing who are not in him. But it says that the good tree can only produce good fruit. So if we are abiding in Christ, there's only one kind of fruit we can bring: good fruit. We cannot produce corrupt fruit. Just like in John, the first letter of John, chapter 3, verse 9. "Whosoever is born of God does not commit sin, for his seed remained in him, and he cannot sin because he is born of God." So it is Jesus' seed that remains in us, and he cannot produce or do any sin. So when his seed abides in us, and his seed is remained in us, that makes us children of God, and we cannot produce bad fruit, and we cannot produce sin, because whose seed is living inside of us, that is completely sinless, that is completely pure. But then again, back onto the passage, when Jesus talks about the fruit production, he says this corrupt tree can only bring forth bad fruit. So the group he was talking about here was the false prophets. He's not talking about believers. He's simply describing what kind of fruit these false prophets will produce. And this, in fact, is the evil fruit that's being produced by the corrupt tree. And in the grapevine, those branches, so those believers who are struggling, who are suffering with weaknesses, with addictions, with bad habits, or just a lack of spiritual maturity, these kind of branches are not going to get cut away, but they're going to get lifted up, hoisted up and elevated, so it can be clean, it can get to the sunshine, it can be supported by the string on which they're resting on, or poles or twigs, or I don't know, I'm not a wine expert, but these branches that are in need of support, Christ is going to take care of them in such way that he's not going to cut away part of his own body, but he's going to take care of it, nourish it, so it can regenerate and start producing. So this is the actual context of the passage, and I think this is so much more accurate, and it's so much more encouraging, and it brings us peace, because a lot of us can feel kind of fruitless at times, unable to move forward, or we have difficulties in certain areas in our lives. And we feel like we are stagnant. So we are kind of like laying down on the ground and just doing nothing. But Jesus says he will take care of these branches by lifting them up and elevating them. So I hope you found a little bit of encouragement in these passages, so you can be strengthened, lifted up, hoisted up, or elevated by the word of Christ that is also cleanses us all, so we can start producing. So God bless you all, I love you all, and we talk to you in the next video. Bye.